We've all been watching SpaceX. They work a little differently from traditional industry, said Lori Glaze, acting Deputy Associate Administrator in NASA's Exploration Directorate. We're all keeping an eye on the progress as they continue development. Yes, no one is more eager than NASA to see SpaceX's Starship tests succeed. Starship holds the key to Artemis 3, the mission to return humans to the moon. Flight 5 is a hugely promising signal for this mission. So, where exactly is SpaceX in its preparations for a moon landing? And when might it actually happen? Let's dive into the latest updates in today's episode. Starship's fifth test flight holds enormous significance for NASA's Artemis program to return humans to the moon. SpaceX has proven what many once thought impossible: the ability to launch and recover the most powerful rocket ever built, and an incredible degree of precision from the ship. Immediately after the spectacular success of Flight 5, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson tweeted, "Congratulations to SpaceX on its successful booster catch and fifth Starship flight test today." Just one day after Flight 5, the International Astronautical Congress, IAC, took place, and SpaceX quickly became the focal point of every discussion. Bill Nelson didn't hide his excitement, stating, "I think you saw as a result of Sunday's test of SpaceX and its big rocket that they are moving along very well. That will determine ultimately the timing for the landing of Artemis 3 on the moon. As of Sunday's test, it was right on the mark." According to Nelson, the results of the flight met NASA's expectations perfectly. In fact, a cautious internal analysis by NASA earlier this year estimated about a 70% chance that Starship could reach the readiness level required for a lunar landing by February 2028. This means there might be a considerable delay from NASA's initial timeline, which had aimed for Artemis 3 to take place in September 2026. But the success of Starship's fifth test flight has marked a turning point in NASA's confidence in Starship's ability to stay on schedule, and they are intensifying their collaboration for the Artemis program. A future version of Starship's upper stage will be used as the lunar lander to carry humans down to the moon's surface for the first time since the Apollo era. And unlike SLS, HLS has been far more open to industry input. SLS, as a traditional NASA program, is built on an extremely strict regulatory framework. Every detail, from fuel quantities to component specifications, is precisely defined. Notably, SLS operates under a cost-plus contract model, where contractors are guaranteed reimbursement of all incurred costs, plus a fixed profit margin. Unsurprisingly, this setup often results in minimal urgency to speed up progress, leading to prolonged timelines and significant cost increases. However, for Starship HLS, things are very different. Instead of mandating every technical detail, NASA has outlined 27 core system requirements. These requirements focus on essential safety and performance standards, but leave ample room for creative solutions. SpaceX is free to design and develop its own approach, as long as it meets all the fundamental criteria. This flexible approach has allowed SpaceX to fully leverage its strengths in innovation and rapid development. Unbound by complex bureaucratic processes, they can focus on reaching targets in the most efficient way possible. And clearly, SpaceX is advancing at an incredible pace. In the upcoming Flight 6, SpaceX will test the in-space engine relight capability of its engine. This will pave the way for orbital missions, enable ship recovery, and allow complex in-space maneuvers, essential for refueling operations. SpaceX has already scheduled the refueling test campaign to kick off in March next year and continue through the summer. This is going to be epic, two spacecraft the size of Starship docking with each other. Elon Musk is quite confident about this challenge, stating that the docking process might actually be simpler than connecting the Dragon to the ISS, a mission SpaceX has accomplished successfully many times. Behind this confidence lies a deep collaboration between NASA and SpaceX in refining the rocket's design. NASA has brought its extensive experience to help improve several critical technical aspects, especially upgrades to cryovalves and other cooling components inside the vehicle. Notably, NASA is conducting internal testing for SpaceX on MMOD shields used in space. This is different from the main heat shield used when the spacecraft re-enters Earth's atmosphere. The Starship lunar lander will use the Starship V2, and so far, signs of the Starship HLS have been few and far between. The public has only caught glimpses of features like the elevator system, but behind the scenes, development is progressing at an incredible pace. The living and working spaces inside Starship 5-2 are being designed with direct input from future users. According to information from NASA, the astronaut office has played a central role in the design process, with monthly meetings to continuously improve the interior layout and life support systems. NASA and SpaceX are set to conduct a major evaluation of Starship in the summer of 2025, known as the Critical Design Review, CDR. Following that, they'll carry out a design certification review, DCR, where NASA will assess all verification data to ensure SpaceX has met every NASA requirement. Kathy Koerner, NASA's Deputy Director for Exploration Systems Development, expressed optimism about the project's progress, saying, "From a human landing system project status, SpaceX continues to make great progress." Clearly, NASA and SpaceX are pushing full steam ahead, while September 2026 remains an extremely optimistic target for the Artemis 3 mission. If all goes as planned and SpaceX isn't bogged down by unreasonable regulatory hurdles, it's still within reach for SpaceX. The point is, it's not feasible for NASA. For Artemis 3 to stay on schedule, Artemis 2 would also need to launch as planned, and that's just not possible. Massive resources have been poured into the three main pillars of the Artemis program: the SLS, the Orion spacecraft, and the ground infrastructure, for over a decade and a half, yet all three are behind schedule. A recent report from the Government Accountability Office, GAO, has highlighted serious issues, especially with the ground system. NASA's Exploration Ground Systems, EGS program, responsible for building and maintaining the infrastructure required to launch the SLS and Orion, is at risk of missing the deadline for Artemis 2. Earlier this year, the program had a few months of buffer time for the planned September 2025 launch. However, that entire buffer has now been used to resolve technical issues with the mobile launcher and launch pad testing. As of now, despite all components of the SLS rocket having arrived at the Kennedy Space Center, NASA has yet to begin the assembly process, which takes several months to complete. This is a deeply concerning sign. The main reason NASA cites for this delay is their focus on fully addressing issues with the Orion spacecraft's heat shield before moving forward with assembly. Yet, the current situation is far from transparent. Aside from the announcement that they've identified the root cause of the heat shield problem, NASA has remained completely silent on the progress of its resolution. To keep the Artemis program's schedule on track, NASA needs to figure out how to launch the SLS at least once a year. But look at the gap, 3 years between Artemis I and Artemis II, and still, NASA can't seem to handle it. The Artemis program is highlighting one of the biggest challenges of space projects: the complexity of coordinating between multiple participants. We have to wait until all pieces are ready and come together to successfully launch a mission. There's a high likelihood that the Artemis 3 mission will really be pushed to 2028, a delay of 2 years from the original plan. However, looking on the bright side, this delay might actually benefit SpaceX. With an extended timeline, SpaceX will have a much better chance to achieve several critical firsts before landing on the moon. These include landing Starship back on solid ground, testing in-orbit refueling, proving the reusability of their boosters, and carrying out long-duration flights. And before humans set foot on the moon again, SpaceX will need to pull off at least one successful uncrewed landing on the lunar surface.